Good afternoon and welcome to the show. I'm Simi, Sara. Yes, we are putting BC to work. And you know, if there's one thing we hear a lot about in this province and across the country, really, it is that, there's a skilled worker shortage. How do we train all these people to find these jobs? And everybody points to post-secondary institutions to do that job. So it must be pretty challenging these days to be running those post-secondary institutions. Kathy Kinloch is with me now, the president, I should say the new, recently appointed president of BCIT. Kathy, thank you very much for being here.
Great to be here.
You've started this job in January. What has the last couple of months been like?
Well, it's been a fast learning curve, and it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose would be the way I describe it. And it's wonderful to be at BCIT. It's such an important institution in our post-secondary system, and such a diverse range of programs and skills that they offer students.
What would you say are the biggest challenges facing BCIT right now?
Well, one of the key challenges is helping to address the skills gap. There is a skills gap now, and it will become even more of a skills gap as the LNG projects and the industry goes forward. So a key issue is to not only to deliver on the current programs that we offer, but to increase our capacity and our effectiveness. We need to keep very current with industry. Industry is changing so rapidly, and so we need to keep our curriculum alongside industry and be responsive to that need.
How much can an organization, how much can BCIT do and how much does industry need to do? I mean, here you're going to be investing the time and the money in training people, but then industry is just going to come along and take them. I mean, is there a shared relationship there?
Oh, absolutely. There has to be a shared relationship. In order for our students to graduate, and any students actually, in a trades training program particularly, or a skilled area, they really need to be aligned with industry when they walk out the door. So they need to be what we call at BCIT job ready. And our graduates, most of our graduates are hired at 92% to 94% higher rate within the first 6 months of graduation. That's a sign we're aligned with industry.
Which program, though, is that? Is that across the board?
That's across the board.
Because that would be pretty impressive if it's across the board.
That's across the board. So we're very proud of that. So when we use the slogan BCIT works, that's what we mean.
And how has BCIT managed to carve that out for themselves? I mean, if that's the case, I can imagine you must have a lineup of people waiting to get in.
Oh, we have lots of wait lists. But one of the key things we do is we make sure that we add more programs as we're able, and also use different modalities so students can learn online. They can learn part-time, full-time, or the variety of courses selections that they wish to have at the time that's going to best suit their needs, so they don't need to come back for a complete block. They can keep moving forward.
Do you have industries that often are they coming to BCIT saying, we need your help?
Oh, daily since I've arrived. It seems to be there's different industries frequently asking. Some are preparing for the LNG advancement. Some are saying we know in a couple of years we'll be in trouble. Some are saying now in certain regional areas they're already having issues, and so could we help partner with another post-secondary to help that area out? So there's not a shortage of desires to move forward together.
Is that a little bit frustrating, though, that people expect, will knock on BCIT's door and say, hey, train our workers for us?
Well, BCIT has a provincial mandate, and we're very proud of that, and we want to step up on that. At the same time, we don't see ourselves being the solution for every area. We know that we have lots of sister post-secondary organizations that we can work with, so it helps them be successful in their regional area as well as us work with them to support them. So we front-end load and teach what we call front-end loading in the area that they live in. They often come to BCIT for a short period of time and go back to their community, work there, and then graduate from there.
Right. It must be pretty difficult, though, pretty challenging, because industries change all the time, right? Some new equipment, new machines, and boom, all of a sudden they didn't get taught that just 6 months or a year ago.
And that's a key point. So one of the things we do, and we'll be looking to increase our capacity on, is re-credentialing people so that they can move forward and be current in their in their environment that they're in.
What would you say are the busiest areas at the school right now?
Well, it varies, but anything in the trades right now is very busy. Anything in the building trades, the millwrights, construction, welders, metal fabricators, even heavy-duty equipment, mechanics. Are we
seeing a swing back to that? For a long time, there was a lot of discussion about how we're not going to have enough of people in the trades, but it seems like talking about that so much over the last couple of years has really prompted a lot more interest in those lines of work.
Well, it has. And also working with the high schools, which has been key to ensuring that we see a really positive view from high school students to go into the trades, that it's not a marginalized group, that it's a very fulfilling career. In fact, this week we have Chris Hatfield coming in next week, I believe, and we'll be meeting with about 1,000 high school students to talk about the trades and the opportunities as we move forward. That's just one small example of how we reach out to those high school students.
So then what does BCIT need?
BCIT needs many things, probably, as any post-secondary institution, but we need to continue to strengthen our partnership to be aligned with government, the government agenda, so we can help deliver, and to work with our partners, our sister organizations around the province, so that we can be most effective in delivering these programs.
And what do you think makes your institution so unique? You know, we hear complaints that at university, kids are expecting to find a job right away in the line of work that they studied, but I mean, BCIT was always set up to be different than that.
Yeah, BCIT focuses on applied learning. It's not a research-intensive university, and it partners very well with that industry component, so that the applied learning is practical, it's real, and it's current, and that when a BCIT grad walks out the door, they're ready to hit the job.
Right. What would you? I know you said that there are lots of wait lists around there. Are there some areas that you would like to grow some more, that you feel the demand is coming?
Well, there's so many emerging areas in each of these areas that are moving forward, particularly as we look into LNG. But we have to address, and we are addressing with government support, wait lists in electrical and welding, power engineering as an example. Yet we know there's new areas developing as we move through LNG operators. Who's going to operate these plants? How are we going to support them with our health and safety and environmental issues? So these are all areas that we're looking forward to being part of.
Like the supportive areas, right?
Yes.
Like, okay, it's one thing to work in the plant, but what about, we were talking about this last week on the show, all the other lines of work that go along in supporting that?
Absolutely. It's like building a small community. What do you need when you build a community? And those are the roles and functions that we want to be helpful in supporting.
All right. We are talking with Kathy Kinloch, for the president of BCIT. We'll have more right after this. Welcome back. We're talking about putting BC to work. And if there's one thing we hear about over and over and over again, it is the skilled worker shortage. BCIT, they are working hard to try to help out in that area. Kathy Kinloch, the president of BCIT, is with us. Now, what about the expectations, Kathy, from students? And we're talking about how successful BCIT can be. Is there a downside to that where people are going to show up and expect that all I have to do is get through this course and there's a great job waiting there for me?
Well, it's a great question, because BCIT doesn't work quite that way. We are very applied, and that means we give experience along the route. And if students are not able to meet that experiential exercise, they don't go on. It's a pretty tough place. Sometimes it's referred to as a bit of a boot camp. But we're proud of the fact that when these students graduate, they're ready to work, and they're seen as valuable by the employers.
Right, but they have to have that attitude as well. It's just training isn't enough always.
That's right.
And you said that, what did you call BCIT? A finishing school?
Yes.
And why is that?
Well, a number of our students already have an undergraduate degree, and then they look at where can they get a job, or is that really what they want to pursue for the rest of their career, and they recognize that they need some applied skills as well to round themselves out. So they often come to BCIT and get the next degree or diploma that moves them forward, and so we call it finishing school.
And has that changed? Have you seen more students like that?
I think it's pretty much on. I don't have the statistics on it, but I would expect that it's going to be more of an area of interest for students, particularly as we see the greater need for skilled workers.
Interesting. Now, what about on-the-job training? I get emails from people saying that, okay, I thought about that, but I managed to get a job. So is it more helpful for them, I guess the question, to go to an institution like BCIT, or is it, if they got the job and worked minimum wage and worked their way up, is that more useful?
Well, they can do both and still enter BCIT. If they've got a job and they want to better themselves or focus on a new area or study, they can. As well, if they have we take a number of part-time students as well. Now, for minimum wage workers, we have a number of partnerships, and we're always evolving them. So I think you've sponsored or highlighted McDonald's, where we've worked with McDonald's, and the students who come to us have reached their maximum level for their management programs. We have another program that we're working with, Helmets to Hard Hats, where we're taking the veterans and bringing them in and looking at where their area of interest is, and then starting to move them into skilled and as well business programs.
Are the workers there? I mean, we hear about we're not going to have enough people to fill the labor force, and companies are worried. Like, what do you say to companies and industries?
Well, we're in a bit of a perfect storm. We've got an economic upturn, an expansion. We've got a declining birth rate. And although we may not see it right away, we're going to have an aging population where there's going to be a tsunami, I call it, of retirements happening. So the need for us to have a continual filling the pipeline with new skilled workers is critical.
Are we ready for that?
We're getting ready. I think the province has definitely stepped up and said we've got an industry expansion coming, get ready. And we've got the next couple of years to really start to move that forward, so we're prepared.
Are industries doing enough, though?
Industry, I think, is starting to come to the table more. Over the next couple of months, we'll be having a number of panels and discussions with industry, as you know, around the Vancouver area to highlight the need even more. And I think just from what I've seen in my short time at BCIT, industry is interested in being part of the solution.
Yeah, do you think that they're a little slow to come to the table, perhaps?
Perhaps a little slow, and we still have issues to address, including apprenticeship and the role industry takes in apprenticeship. There's been some recent recommendations that are very valuable out in terms of looking at apprenticeship and having industry tie the certain number or percentage of apprenticeships to make sure that we have a certain percentage at all times for public sector jobs, for example.
Is that a bit of a contentious area these days? Because people go internship, apprenticeship, that whole idea of unpaid internships. I mean, we've certainly done our fair share of shows on that. I mean, perhaps the economic circumstances of the last 5 or 6 years has kind of made some companies take employees for granted.
Absolutely, and there's examples of that, unfortunately, too frequently. I think the tide will shift, though, and people will recognize in industry, and definitely it's already happening, that to ensure that they have that person who's coming and devoting their time in an apprenticeship particularly, they may need to lean in more because they should be keeping those employees. They're their future workforce for them.
Yeah, do you think that relationship is changing between employer and employee?
I hope it is.
And why do you say that?
Well, I see that those are the potential people who will be the future leaders in those companies. And the more they can stay in this mobile workforce we have today, is the more that we need to lean in, both post-secondary and industry, to make sure they're successful. Right.
Maybe we talk about that. People don't have any problem these days with quitting their job and perhaps finding another. And industry do they need to lure workers more?
Well, it's a competitive work environment, so the more benefits they're able to provide, and particularly continuing education, so that the workers stay current and credentialed, that there's partnerships with places like BCIT and other post-secondary institutions, so that they can continually refresh and be valuable to the workforce, but yet feel valued in their own skill set as well.
That's a big change too, right? I mean, that is a complete turnaround from what we've experienced in the last 20 years in all sorts of different industries.
Oh, absolutely. And it doesn't go just for trades and skills. It goes across every occupation.
Is it hard for you to get that message through sometimes to both potential students and to businesses?
I think the potential students are really seeing the opportunities, and businesses as well. I think, as I say, when this retirement boom really starts to take shape in whatever industry, and in some it's already hitting there, the solutions become much more paramount.
What does BCIT need then, would you say, over the next little while?
BCIT needs continued industry support, needs to be at the forefront in terms of working with kindergarten to K-12 level, particularly the high school level, to make sure that students continue on and are successful. And always we need government support as we move forward and to be aligned with government.
And what can we do at the high school level? I mean, is that more shop classes? Is that more trades classes?
Partly it is that. We actually would like to, and we are already working with high schools to start introducing trades programs along the way so that when they graduate from high school, they're well on their way along their chosen path in trades, if that's what they choose. As well, making pathways so that if they choose an area and they want to move to another, that they don't lose credentials or credit for what they've already studied, not just in high school, but throughout their post-secondary experience. It's never a linear path in learning, as we all know, and your interests change over time as you mature, you're exposed to new ideas. So having pathways is really very important for the students to be successful.
That's a tough area, though, isn't it? Getting trades classes in high schools. I mean, a lot of them would say they don't have the money. Keeping their equipment relevant. Equipment is such a big deal now. They can't afford to do that.
It's tough, and that's why focusing on key schools and starting to move that with the school system into reality more is critical and very important. And also using our own facilities at BCIT and as much as we can.
Do you foresee an expansion for BCIT?
Well, I don't think you talk to any president who wouldn't want to talk about an expansion, but I'm not sure that it would be on a campus as much as it would be around the Lower Mainland and working with other organizations across the province so that they can deliver the trades where they're needed and the skills where they're needed.
Okay, so what are the big focuses then for your institution upcoming? You've talked about, the LNG industry. What does that look like?
So one of the things in post-secondary is what is our LNG strategy that we can really lean in on and be articulate about. And BCIT is spending the last couple of months, and we'll finish it up over the next month, in looking at what is our resource strategy and what can we contribute to the resource strategy for the province, including LNG. So out of that, we'll determine new programs that we see coming out and new ideas and areas and new ways of giving our education so it's not a traditional modality.
And you said after LNG, then you're going to be building what?
After LNG, our focus is concurrently on shipbuilding and as well on mining. Those are the key areas that we're focusing in on in the short term.
That's pretty much a lot of work for BC.
It is.
What would you want to see in a student? What, like, somebody who's hearing this and thinking, I should think about this. I should think about BCIT. What do they need to know?
Well, they just need to know how to get on the web and connect with us, and we'd be pleased to talk to them. We recognize there's not a linear path, so there's lots of students with various interests, and together we can work out solutions for them to enter and be successful.
And is there room to get all these people trained? I mean, I know the demand is high. Every industry wants their workers to show up on their doorstep fully trained. Can you do that?
Well, we've got some wait lists, and we're addressing them with some funding as it comes in. So we may not get to their first choice right away, but we can sure get them in the system and get them going so they'll have some credits under their belt.
And as you said, with the help of industry, right? Industry coming to the table.
Absolutely.
Well, Kathy, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
That is Kathy Kinloch, the president of BCIT. We're talking about putting BC to work and how we're dealing with that skilled worker shortage here in British Columbia. And for more information on what Kathy talked about, you can head over to the BCIT website, or if you have any questions, you can email me, Simi, at CKNW.com.